Good morning, friends, wherever you might be, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a cup of your favorite beverage, preferably in one of these cups. Shameless plug. And I had to hurry up there since I was getting a countdown from Whip's World. Always the troublemaker. How you doing, Whips? And let's see who else we have in the house here. If you can hear me and the AV is good, let me know. Let me know what the AV is like. And let's see here. Our Baglio in the house. Hey, Denny. Denny is great. AV is great. Thank you very much. Cichlid Kings and Denny. Ex-Kali Kev in the house. Gabriel's Glass Boxes. Fishman Marcus. Man, we got some great names in here. And hey, Salient Aquatics. Love that name. Good afternoon to you too, my friend. And 32 Cichlids. What a great name for a channel. 32 Cichlids. That number can change without notice. Michael Smith and Gaia Aquatics and Pets in the house. Hey, Vibes. Good to see you, buddy. And Medco74, welcome to the live stream. And Finn Sanity is here. Hey, Finn Sanity. Roddy Younger, the goat of tanking. I wouldn't go that far, my friend. And Eric. Hey, Eric. Glad you're here, my friend. And Jeff Kane. Hey, Sunder. Good to see you, Sunder. Glad you're here. And anyway, let's go ahead and get going. So many great people here on the stream. Love it, love it, love it. And let's go ahead and do the official start. All right, that makes it official. So we have a few good things to cover today. I have, I'm going to try and give you a lap of the fish room. Not sure if I can from this vantage point. You know, I try and give you a different vantage point every time we do this. And I'm looking at the 300-gallon aquarium, and just to give you an idea, and the 210 is on my right. Of course, the planted tank is behind me, and the 90-gallon. And then I've got the live bears off camera, and the betta tank, and my little black algae experiment behind this 90 gallons. You get kind of an idea of the floor plan of the fish room. That black bearded algae experiment is pretty much completed. The black bearded algae is really gone. It's actually gone. And I think it's a combination of things. And it's funny because it's gone in both the 29-gallon, where it was technically the lab, right? The 29-gallon. It's gone there, but it's also pretty much 98% disappeared from the 55 behind me. And I had kind of two things going at once. Of course, I had the autos, and then the SAE, the Siamese algae eater, in the 29. So they all had a shot at it. The autos did a good job, and the SAE pretty much finished it off. So there's really no algae. You'll see a video. I'll put out a short final update. And then behind me, a combination of the things that I changed. Small water changes, phosphate pads, of course, using some of the root tabs and the Easy Green fertilizer, but also cutting back the lights. And you know, a lot of lights out there are full spectrum, but they have only an on or an off switch, or maybe they have different color combinations. Like you can put white and red, or white, red, and blue, or just blue, or so. My takeaway from it is definitely have a light that allows you to vary the intensity of the light. And I cut the light back, way back behind me. So out of out of 10 different levels of intensity, right? 10% increments. It's almost like at 30-40%. And at that point, the black algae started to disappear. And I think the other plants, together with the phosphate pads, the root tabs, and the fertilizer, the other plants were out competing the black algae for nutrients, and so it was, the black algae simply gave up. Plus, I threw the autos in there, the 3 autos, when I took them out of the 29 and put the Siamese algae eater in there. So at any rate, I'm going to put out a short video that lays out my findings, and this is in no way going to be a published peer-reviewed double-blind study. This is really all anecdotal, like so many things in the fish world. It's really just going to be my take on it, and how I was able to get that black algae to really just disappear without having to get in there and use peroxides or remove and scrub and do all kinds of other crazy stuff. I didn't have to do any of that, so it was good. Some of you were asking about the hat I wore in my last video, which is doing real well. The Liars on YouTube. It's amazing how those, how these sort of dramatic thumbnails, the little cover of the video, how these things draw, but it's getting a very positive, a lot of positive reviews and a lot of positive comments. But some of you asked about this hat. This is the bacon hat, and a couple of you identified it correctly as being a pork product. And this is not me. Promoting any kind of Farmer John or anything. What it is when my son was coaching with the Phillies, they have a farm team that is called the Iron Pigs up in Pennsylvania, in rural Pennsylvania, one of the AAA teams, and this is one of the hats that they wear. Just a little bit of dark pig humor. They wear a bacon hat. So, oh boy, a little cruel, I guess, if you love pigs. So, at any rate, that solves the hat mystery. So, I have something for you. Sometimes I mention my little Pleco, my little Pleco nursery. A friend of mine was moving and had to tear down a tank, and unbeknownst to him, he had some plecos in there that apparently had been breeding for quite a while, and the tank was it was a little green and had a lot of decor, and so he really had no idea to what extent these plecos had been breeding. And so when he went to tear down the tank, all of a sudden about 30, 40 teeny little plecos show up. And he's not the kind of guy to just flush them all down the toilet, or didn't really want to take them to the local fish store. So he calls me up, brings them all over in a bucket, and I set them up in a little teeny tank I have. So I talk about these fish every now and then, but we never really get to see them. So what I did is I put up. They hide instantly the second you walk towards the tank. And so what I did is I put a camera and a light, and here they are. Here's my little Pleco farm. Now, at first, you're not going to see anything because I tried to coax them out with a little bit of I think it was cucumber, maybe zucchini. But I tried to coax them out, and I think zucchini and cucumber is one of those things where they when they find it, they get into it, but they don't. It isn't necessarily have any kind of aroma or anything. But when I dropped in the Sarah wafers, you'll see here what happens, and I'll speed it up a little bit. Hey, you see them now. See that? Look how many there are. Now, if we're lucky, we'll get a shot at Big Mama. There's Big Mama in there. Big Papa is living in the 210, so they haven't been breeding since I brought them over. But Big Mama is in the 210. Big Papa is in this tank. Let me see if he comes out. He's got the little bristles. Come on, Big Papa. You rarely see him. He really spooks. They live inside of that piece of wood. That piece of wood is hollow, and it's where they it's their Pleco cave. So as you can see, there's quite a few of them, including a few albinos. I've farmed a few of them out to some of the tanks, and I have a couple of them in the 55. I have in both 55s. Have each of them behind me have a couple of these plecos, and I think the big guy is right there on the screen right now, on the left side from my vantage point. Maybe on your right, but you can see all the dust that got kicked up when he came out. And he's like, hey, plecos. Usually what he does, he kicks all the other fish out of the way and grabs a pleco. I mean, grabs a wafer and kind of dominates. But at any rate, you can see there how many little babies are actually in this aquarium. And so over time, I mean, I keep farming them out as they put on size to other tanks. But at some point, I'm going to have to take some of them to the local fish store, because it's just, I'm just going to be overwhelmed with plecos. Now, the one thing you don't do with plecos, of course, is you don't drop them into local waterways, because they are very invasive, very adaptable, and they become somewhat of an apex fish and start to wreak havoc with plants and other fish. They'll actually latch onto other fish and remove their slime coats when they get big enough. So never release a pleco into a local waterway. That's today's public service message. So there you go. You've seen my little pleco farm, and I really like those little guys, and they're very resilient. I've been doing salt treatment with an Insignis in a tank behind me here, and there are little plecos in there, and they don't really mind the salt. And you know, I've done a water change and found out that one of them was at the bottom of the bucket that had come in through the hose, and who knows how long he was in there. You just scoop him out, put him in, and he's fine. And so I think and probably what's going on to be almost maybe 9 months to a year now, I think one of them have died. One of the 35 or 40, and I don't know what he died from, but anyway. There you have it. So, in that last video, I was making a comment about somebody commenting on the use of sponge filters. And I just want to make it really clear, I don't have anything against sponge filters. I use them, and I have one in my live bear tank. I've considered using them in my betta tank, and I think they're fine. I think sponge filters have their place, just like I think canisters, hang-on backs, and sumps, and even under gravel filters, have their place, and completely unfiltered tanks have their place in the hobby. They all have a place, and it's not a matter of who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong, and any of that sort of thing. It's just a matter of recognizing that there are lots of ways to do something, and lots of ways that are workable and that will give you healthy fish, which is the bottom line. And in the end, it's what are you happy with? What makes you happy? What kind of tank do you want to keep? What gives you joy when you sit in front of it? That's really the bottom line. Also, when I talk about sponges, of course, have lots of application. I have sponges inside of cartridges that are inside of my hang-on back filters. Those sponges are just rinsed out and put back in, like once every 3 to 4 weeks. I have gigantic sponges in my DIY sumps that I've made under my 210 and my 300 that are the heart of those filtration systems. So I think in a lot of ways, sponges are very much a part of the hobby. But what I was referring to specifically in that video was that standalone, that bulky round sponge that if I was to rely exclusively on that, with that, in the 210 or 300, I'd probably have to have 4 of them, like big giant sponges, the kind that James Largo uses at the Cichlid Shack in his giant tubs. And they would probably keep the aquarium clean, but aesthetically, they would be very unpleasing for me. And the bubbles coming up through that's not going to give me the kind of water movement that I feel I need for these kinds of fish, and the kind of water turnover. And by turnover, I mean how many gallons per hour gets pushed through media. And for things like that, you can't beat a sump or a canister. There are some high GPH hang-on backs out there, but nothing beats having a pump, like a 2,700 gallon per hour pump, or a 2, 3, 4, 500 gallon per hour a canister. You just can't beat that for water turnover. So let's see here. Let's take a look at some of the things you have to say. And oh, by the way, I have something new for you. And while I was thinking about it, a quick shout out to the Cichlid Shack, a sponsor of the channel. James over in Tempe, Arizona, will get you some high quality fish, cichlids, as well as all kinds of other fish. And go to the cichlidshack.com and use Shack Attack 15 for fish orders over 100, and Shack Attack 10 for any dry goods like food or equipment. And it doesn't apply to shipping. He just charges whatever the shipping cost is. He doesn't make any money on shipping. And if you do choose Southwest, be sure that Southwest does deliver to your airport, so that you don't have to drive 3 hours to pick up your fish. He also uses UPS and FedEx. So check out the Cichlid Shack. And also a very big shout out to the members of the Garage Gang, my Patreon monthly supporters. There's information about this under the video, and it's their support that helps me to do a lot of the things I do, but also to get to places like Aquashella, travel out to fish stores, that kind of stuff. That's what that fund is for, and it really helps out a lot. So big shout out to my Patreon supporters, and also a big shout out to my wonderful moderators. If you there's been a couple mottos or sayings that have sort of developed here on the channel, and I've developed a couple t-shirts for those. One of them is you want success, mess less. So we now have a want success, mess less, and the back of it just has the YouTube channel on it with a whole bunch of cichlids. So that's one t-shirt that's available now. And then we also have that bunch of cichlids with it. It's truly it's a fluid situation. And the back just has a big giant Malawi trout on it and the YouTube channel. So we have 2 brand new t-shirts that are available at my Teespring store. Check them out, along with mugs, hoodies, and all kinds of other good stuff. So, all right. Got to pay the bills. So, what questions do you folks have? What questions do you have about filtration, about recent events, about anything that's going on? And thank you, Jerry, for sharing that. And Jerry is one of my wonderful moderators. We have Jerry, and I think Denny's on here, and John, and Vibes Aquatics, and I'll tell you, Cichlid Kings, and I don't know if GP is GP here. Best moderators on YouTube. But let's see here. Let's see what your questions are, and let's answer some of them. I would not put, and this is from Angelo, I would not put an SAE, a Siamese algae eater, in with African cichlids. They are shaped perfectly to serve as an appetizer for a African cichlid. They would basically be smoked like a cigar. So no, do not put an SAE in there. Hey, GP, I see you, my friend. Boss in the house. He has Bosmans and Neon Dwarf. Those are great rainbows. I've seen them with an angel. Will one electric blue Ochart be okay with them? I think one would be okay. I think if you put 3 or maybe put 4 or 5, they might occupy each other, and that might work too. But you would risk the chance of a high level of aggression if they pair up and start breeding. I think one would be good. I think one would be good. So that's my take on it. They don't really get too large. I have one in here. You can come here, buddy. I got this guy from the same person that gave me the Plecos, and he's just you can't see him on this shot, but let me see if I can. I'll go back to the here we go. This guy right here, can you see him? He's like a little blue electric. Of course, the Geo has to come in and hog, but yeah, I have one in there, and he's an old guy, a big old guy, one of the biggest electric blue Ocharts I've ever seen. And again, I got him from the same person that was tearing down that tank and gave me the Pleco fish, the Pleco cats. So let's go back to the chat and see what we got here. Alex says quality goldfish. In my main tank, I like trying all sorts of filtration, canisters, big sponges, double corner filters, HOBs. Laugh out loud, love them all. Yeah, you know, and you and I have a very similar viewpoint. And you know, I think there's a place in the hobby for just about everything, including nothing. You know, if you have the right kind of setup where plants and, you know, your small little, you know, shrimp and catfish or you know, cories are kind of doing the work. And yeah, there's a place in the hobby for everything. So, and I like using a little bit of everything. I mean, when I first set up my DIY sumps, the whole philosophy in setting them up was go all sponges. Just these big 4-inch thick, 14-inch high, you know, I think maybe 12 inches across or 11 inches across, Swiss tropical porate sponges, right? These matin or porate, I forget which one is which, but they're really high quality sponges. And but then Sarah shows up and says, "Hey, would you like some Ciporax?" Someone sends me some Matrix. Some CQ. I just go, what the heck? I'll just throw it all in there. Who cares? And so all that's in that 40-gallon right now, that 40-gallon sump. You know, it's like I'm not a like I mentioned in that video, I'm not a Mussolini fish keeper. You know, this way or the highway. You know, it's like no, we're not going to go that route, and we're not going to invade Poland. So let's see here. Tiberius Gracious. Now, was that a ruler of Rome, Tiberius, or is that really your name? Because if it's your name, it's an amazing name. I've actually trained my plecos to come to the surface when it's feeding time. They will turn upside down and let me drop food in and go. Ever heard of this? That's amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. I think plecos are amazing fish. Very few things are cuter than baby plecos because they're like fully shaped and they stick on the glass when they're the size of a comma, and that's amazing. Tiberius. I feel like I'm addressing an emperor. Emperor Tiberius Gracious II. Oh, a great name. Aquaball's in the house. He's putting a plug in for a Southern California, it looks like Gary Lang, going to be at the, I guess, the coast, at the Coastal Fish Club. So yeah, if you're in SoCal, go on by. Whip Swirl using canisters as my primary filtration, HOB for pothos to grow in, and sponges for aeration. Yeah, I tell you, a combination is good for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is the redundancy. Just the fact that if something fails, you have all these other options, right? And also, and any one of those options will keep things alive until you can get whatever the other one fixed. And also you also have a you're harvesting a lot of bio in a lot of different kinds of mediums, like those sponge cylinders that go inside of the internal filters, inside of the Expertmatic, those round cylinders of sponges. They usually come in 3 chambers. I have a whole bunch of those inside the sumps, just floating around, and I have them inside of a marine land. I have 4 of them inside of a marine land hang-on back. So 2 and 2 pushed way down, and then on top of it, I have rolled up phosphate pads from the aquarium co-op pushed on top of that. So I have some instant filter media I can use if I have to get a tank going right away. In the meantime, it's filtering for me, and I'm able to put different kinds of pads on top depending on what's going on. I mean, the co-op makes phosphate pads, they make ammonia pads, they make carbon pads, they make all kinds of different, different kinds of pads, as well as just regular filtration pads. And this is behind one of those gray cartridges that holds egg crate sponges that have been cut to shape. And I like the egg crate. If anyone that follows Pond Guru, he talks about how the egg crate gives you more surface area, right? So I have egg crate sponges. Be sure the water flow is running into the egg crate, into the raised up areas where all the surface area is. Just be sure that that's facing the water flow, and you'll get a lot more surface area. Jerry Martin, I've treated my green tear for everything and not eating well for the last 5 weeks. How long do I keep him separated? He's 8 inches in a 20-gallon. Jerry, I would just be spitballing, I would just be sort of guessing. I do know that sometimes they can get very down by being in a restricted space. That could be something. But he still hasn't responded to food. And I imagine you've tried some of the foods that we consider irresistible, like your bloodworms and your frozen krill and maybe some tilapia or things of this nature, right? Maybe some food that's been soaked in garlic. You've tried all that, and he's still not eating. So if the problem is still there, that he went into quarantine to begin with, I would be reluctant to put him in the main tank because he's going to be weak. And he's not eating now. He's certainly not going to eat when there's competition for food. So I would hang them in there. I'd leave them in there a little longer. An 8-inch fish in a 20-gallon is a little compacted, but a little bit cramped. But I would really try, just, I don't know, maybe try some focus. Maybe put some frozen krill and some focus. I mean, try and come up with some concoction that'll get some nutrients into his body. I imagine you've tried deworming him. You've tried the paraclans, things of this nature. 8 inches. It doesn't sound like he's at the end of his life. He probably has another 2-3 inches to grow. I'd be doing water changes at least once a week. Give him a lot of fresh water. Man, tough call. Really tough call. Nothing on the outside. No marks. No lost scales. No infection. No velvet type. No cotton looking marks. No saddle. White stripe behind the dorsal fin. Nothing like that. I'm assuming. It's just he won't eat. So yeah, that's a tough call, Jerry. Tough call. But I wouldn't put him back until he was eating for at least about a week, because I'm afraid he would go ahead and he would just be so outcompeted for food, he would just waste away. So anyway, hate to hear that. Mexicali fish keeper in the house. Keith Dewey in the house. Calling me the professor. Is it calling me the professor? Oh, Professor X. I'll shave my head, get into a wheelchair. Mohammed is in the house. Mohammed Afiq. Am I pronouncing that right, Mohammed? Mohammed Afiq? I know 20 to 40 parts per million is universal rule of thumb for nitrates, but I'm wondering how much my fish can survive. Well, don't get me started. I think there are studies out there that hit ridiculous levels. And I mean ridiculous levels. 800, 1,000 parts per million, right? I mean, just ridiculous levels. I think that in the farming of fish, like salmon farms and things like that, they'll take those nitrates way up, right? They have those fish really jammed up together, and they still consider it okay, right? It doesn't mean that we want to or should do that, but it's not uncommon for me to go if I'm feeding high protein, like krill and things like that. It's not uncommon for me to find my tank has crept up to between 40 and 80 parts per million. And I don't see any difference in the fish, in behavior, in color, in activity, in appetite, nothing. No difference. So would it make a difference over a long period? I don't know. But all I know is that I have gone up into those levels, and I haven't seen any kind of disaster. So I think people worry too much, and I think that this is just one man's opinion. I think that there is a philosophy of, or there's a tactic of using fear in sales. Like if you don't use this product and keep your nitrates below 10. You're a bad fish keeper, and your fish are going to die, and you should be embarrassed. And I think some of that is sales pitch, because people got to move those products, that you have to use when you do your water changes. And I think I even put a video on it. Right? Is nitrates? I think it's just called nitrates. Is it a sales follow the money sales scam or I put a video out on it a while back. So I don't think we need to have nitrate anxiety as part of our fish keeping. I think we need to stay on top of it. I think we shouldn't let, if you're breeding fish, I do know that breeders report that keeping those nitrates low can encourage and create a better breeding environment. But I wouldn't worry too much if your nitrates are a little bit up. I don't think that's something to worry about. Some fish are more sensitive, and GP has a good point. There are some fish that, like let's say your discus, you know, certain you have to maintain a very pristine situation, and so you know, and even now we're getting discus that are like I think Watley discus. They've been you know, bred a certain way, you know, locally, and you know, and they have a higher, they're more of a robust discus that can take some nitrate, can take a wider range of pH, and so yeah, it's a fluid situation. Yeah, that could be my my catchphrase for when I don't really, when I kind of know, but I kind of don't know, and I'm kind of 80% sure, but not 100. It's a fluid situation. Yeah, it's a fluid situation. A lot of moving parts. You know, we got to dig down. You know, all these terms that they use, like in corporate America. Oh, we're going to drill down, and you know, a lot of moving parts, and we're going to. Anyway, I used to be in that world. I got tired of drilling down. All right, let's see. Any more questions here? Cichlid Savvy, a t-shirt that says it's a pristine situation. Well, that would be good. Have some fish floating in air. Yeah, yep. Now, never forget that clean water, pristine water, is not necessarily healthy water. I can drop a bottle of, you know, I could put some bleach into these aquariums that I never would, and they would still look pretty clean, and the fish would die. So just remember that just because it looks clean, you may have other things going on. Somebody asked about fasting. I noticed that my sand diver in my African cichlid tank was looking a little plump. Not bloated, just a little plump. And I decided to go ahead, and I haven't fed them since last night. And it's just a free-for-all in the aquarium behind me. I mean, maybe I can turn around and show you. I mean, they're like losing their minds. Hold on one second. Try and turn this. So I don't know if it's because of the fasting or if it's because of that Malawi trout claiming the left side of the tank for his breeding pit. He put an ad in the Cichlids Craigslist, stud male looking for fun-loving female. He hasn't gotten a response yet, and he's never going to get a response, but he definitely has all the fish kind of worked up. And so when they, you know how you get when you haven't eaten, you get hangry. You get hangry. The fish right now are a little hangry. They're going after each other when they normally would not be going after each other. And it's not just the trout, it's all of them. So when you fast, realize that there might be some fireworks And that's what's going on right now in this tank. Right now they calmed down. I don't know why. I turned around and like, oh, he's looking at us. Okay, everybody be on your best behavior. If we let me change the perspective. Hold on. That's a lot better. So you can see the trout there. The trout has claimed this side of the tank and made a 3-foot wide pit. And he goes in and out of it, you know. But I don't know if it's because I'm fasting him that he's gotten a little triggered here, but they're a little calmer now. But he's got them all around the top of the tank. He's got them. I've got that plant in the middle. I redecorated the tank. You saw that in my video on the law of thirds and decorating a tank. Now, interestingly enough, he does the mating dance with the sand diver. So the sand diver seems to be the only one that it's kind of safe for him to go over there, because he's sort of his I don't know how to describe it, his prison wife. I don't know how to describe it, but because of that, he gets to roam over there and they pair up and do their little dance together. I guess practice mating. You see him circling there. Up there they go. Come here, big boy. All right, so that's what's going on there. So yes, I do fast them from time to time. Now, let's see if I can get this camera over to and show you the 210. It's a little dark. So the 210 is also being fasted for a day. I'll feed them after the live stream. They just didn't get anything to eat last night. But they're a lot calmer. They're not like going after each other or being crazy. You might see some white things floating around. I put in some zucchini, which they ate, but there are still some little fragments floating around that haven't been taken up by the filters yet. Eventually they will. You got a lap of the fish room without getting a lap of the fish room. Fish in here. All right. Thank you to those of you who chipped in on my mic fund with super chats. What was that, 2 weeks ago? I'm getting close, and I will be getting another mic and another mic stand. I think is going to be maybe the first priority that I'll be picking up. But I thank those of you who super chatted and helped with that. All right, let's see here. What other questions you might have? I am in the chat right now. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now. Jason Adams, Whips World says Jason Adams from Primetime Aquatics is the professor. Yes, he is. Jason Adams is, in fact, the professor. Love Jason Adams, love his show. And sometimes I wear Primetime Aquatic t-shirts. I don't know if you ever noticed that. They were kind enough to give me one at Aquashella in Orlando. So let's see here. Cichlid savvy. When Africans do that mating dance, it's establishing, it looks like dominance. Okay. I get it. Nothing to do with sexual orientation. Okay. Now, somebody asked me about canopies. I've had aquariums with canopies. I like them. And here, let me lower this a little bit. Here. Okay, good. Hold on. I think they're very clean looking. I think they give a very finished look to an aquarium. If you have the aquarium, let's say in a living space, like a living room or a den or something like that, I think it gives you a very clean, finished look. The only downside to them is, of course, they can build up humidity, and when you need to do any kind of major work, if you have a real big tank, it'll take a couple folks to take the canopy off and be able to get in there. And, here in the garage, I mean, it's a garage. I don't really need fine pieces of furniture. I just need aquariums. And I'm constantly opening up the tops, getting in there to do something. And a canopy in here would be impractical. If I had one upstairs, in a prominent show tank kind of a situation, yeah, I'd probably I probably would. I probably would want to have a canopy. And the folks that help me with these tanks, the 90, the 20 tall, the 300, the 210, those all came from my friends over at Glass Cages here in Dixon, Tennessee, and they could have made canopies for them. And so, but it's just something I just didn't. Just didn't want, only because of where I have them. Cichlid Kings, Desert Fish, and Whips World. It's peppering me with $5 super chats. Thank you, my friends. Very, very appreciated. I appreciate your support of the channel. Jasaba Sonera. I have an oak canopy. So heavy to remove. Pain. Well, there you go. There you go. It looks good. Sounds good. Like the comedian Miller used to say, it's a little bit like a nude beach. Sounds great until you get there. First time you have to move it, you go, oh, why did I get this canopy? Why? Imagine a canopy on a 7-foot tank, 8-foot tank, 8-foot wide tank, a canopy on just a 6-foot wide tank. I used to have to call my depending on the kind of canopy, like depending how they fold up and stuff, and sometimes you have the lights attached to the canopy. So if you remove it, then you got to figure out a way to light up the tank. Anyway, if you get one, just really think it out and think in terms of, okay, when I take this off, what kind of detachable system can I use for the lighting? At the same time, how do I keep the lighting aerated? Keep enough circulation of air in there so the humidity doesn't kill my lights, and I don't start building up mold on the inside. I mean, usually if the inside of the canopy is painted and sealed, mold wouldn't necessarily be an issue. But anyway. All right, now I have the living stone eye and the Fusco doing a little dance on the right-hand corner of the tank. So a lot going on here. I'm not going to be playing any more Barry White music. Has anyone had an electric blue Ochart in with rasboras and neons without a problem? Good question, Jerry. I don't know. I don't know. It's I mean, they are cichlids. You can't forget they're cichlids, and I think you do have to operate off of, if it fits in their mouth, they'll go for it. But I would have the rasboras and the other fish established, and I'd have them in large groups, especially rasboras who love to school. I'd have maybe between 5 and 10 rasboras, and I think that would give them the best chance of surviving. Cichlid King Fusco said, "You challenge me, fool." Fusco's kind of big, but he's not going to mess with that trout. I'll tell you that. That trout's got to be pushing 10 inches. He's built like a torpedo. So, Whip Swirl, canopies are awesome for hiding things. You know what I used to do? I used to have, under my canopy in California, I had these aquarium fans that you can pick up. I think they were made by Zoomed. And you attach them to the lip of the tank, and they would blow cool air inside the canopy. So in the summertime, it would keep it dry and bring the temperature down in the aquarium. It was actually very, very cool. Now, fish and floral. My EBA are with swordtails and aren't eating the fry, but haven't tried rasbora and neons. That's interesting. Now, swordtails do have an edge. They are, I would say, considerably more aggressive than neons and rasboras, but they're not eating the fry. So that's a real good sign. I will say this, the electric blue Ochart I have. Come on up here, buddy. He just kind of lumbers around and just kind of floats around and doesn't really want any trouble. And so he's kind of slow moving. I don't think I've ever seen him. Maybe if he got startled, you know, he might move quick, but otherwise he just kind of drifts. And, you know, a little bit like maybe like the Nicaragua, maybe like the Salvini, except with half the attitude. But anyway. Yeah, it might work. Might work. Let me know. Let me know what happens. And don't blame me if it doesn't. I'll see you, Michelle. Have fun at the dog park. Dog parks are fun if you have a dog that behaves. I have beagles, and if you cut them loose, they just go, and they'll follow their noses, and they don't come back. Unless you spend a lot of time training them, I guess you can make that happen. All right, let's see here. Michelle Crisco, I know you're leaving, but I think to grow algae, you're probably going to have to work more on length of time and intensity of light. Now, I have heard that, was it red? Is it red? One of those colors is more conducive to algae, but I think a full spectrum light at high intensity for a longer period is going to get you the best result on wanting to grow algae. The other thing you might want to consider is what is called an algae scrubber. An algae scrubber, where you actually grow algae and you can harvest it. Cichlid Kings and F1 Fusco from the Shack Ain't No Punk. Now, for those of you not familiar, F1 means that the parents were born in the lake. Those were F0. And F1 is second generation. And that's what I have. And they're a second generation Fusco, both parents from the lake. I don't even know if is there F2, F3? I've never seen that. Jerry says blue is more conducive to algae. There you go. There you go. We all learn from each other around here. Blue is more conducive to algae. Jessica thinks red is. At any rate, I would think the intensity and like what killed the black algae, lowering the intensity. That's why I say you need, if you're gonna be trying to control algae and grow plants, which is probably why Corey at the Aquarium Co-op went this route. He went with a light where you could change intensity. I mean, if you look at this light back here. I'm going to show you the different levels of intensity this light has. You get a feel for it. We've got 6. Actually, I said 10. Maybe it's the Hydra that has 10. So we have 6 levels of intensity. I'm running it currently at level 3. Get my big head off the screen there. But I'm running it at level 3, and that is where I noticed a cutback, a pullback in the black bearded algae. And again, there's a lot of factors here. We have the root tabs, we have the phosphate pads, we have the water changes, we have the liquid fertilizer, right? And a light that I can change intensity that is full spectrum. That stoner that stoner. Let's bring back undergravel filters. I use lava rock as a substrate with a massive 1,200 plus gallon per hour air pump off Amazon, and it works flawlessly. Hey, I'm telling you, that's gonna pull that detritus down, and I tell you, and no plants. You got a lot of nutrients down there. You could probably get some plants going. The only reason I went away from using lava rock in my aquariums was that the cichlids, I was keeping large African cichlids, and they dart around suddenly, and sometimes in the dark they get startled or they chase each other in the dark, whatever, and they will hit a rock, and if they hit it with their eye, they can lose an eye. They can scratch an eye, they can get infection, scratch their sides, and again that can infect. And so I try and keep the rockscape relatively smooth. There are a couple little points here and there that they would really have to work hard to find and scrape up against. But for the most part, my rocks are smooth. There's a few points in the African cichlid tank. The ones in the South American are totally smooth. They're just rounded river rock. And in here, these are completely smooth too. So, but I just, I've just seen them dart so fast that if they hit something, they can cut an eye open. They can actually scrape an eye pretty bad. And so I have removed, I don't use a lava rock, even though originally I was using it and I loved it. And however, you can break up river rock and drop it into a filter. I mean, not river rock, but lava rock. And you can break it up and drop it into a filter, and it works great. It's very porous. Not as porous as something like perhaps a matrix, but still, matrix, which is basically pumice, another form of lava rock, but still very porous. Now, another thing, Crystal C, another interesting thing that has happened, she's commenting on how algae competes with plants. Another thing that happened is I'm not getting the large amounts of green, hard to scrape off green algae in the 55-gallon. Now, is that because of the recent changes with the lighting and the phosphate pads and all the rest of it, or is it because I put the autos in there? There's 4 little autos in there. So maybe, again, a lot of moving parts. All right, let's see. That Stoner, have you thought about venturing into saltwater? Yes, I have. And it's just not something I want to get involved in, only because I'm still learning here about the my live bears, my betta, I have a lot of learning that's going on currently, and saltwater is I know there's a learning curve there, and even though they do sell those all-in-one coral tanks now, and I think they're very, very cool, and that would be probably where I would dive in, just to put a little bit of coral together. I love, your soft corals. I just love reef tanks. I think they're just beautiful. So that would be where I would dive in, pun intended. All right, let's see here. Cat Sailor, when I first got my tank, put in a large rock formation with large aggressive angels. Angels or no angels. And that chased each other. One died from slamming into that rock from a chase. Yeah, when fish slam into something, I mean, they can hurt their eyes. They can even, I had a fish one time who must have ruptured the swim bladder, got startled, slammed into something, and then slowly rolled over and never recovered. So it was like a swim bladder type of situation. So yeah, they can really hurt themselves doing that. Jessica kept saltwater for 20 years. Not difficult. All right. I'm going to take your word for it. I think that they've got so much monitoring and technology now between the apps and the auto dosing, and there's just a lot of good stuff that you can use these days, so that you're keeping the salinity and the minerals and everything that needs to be right can be kept right, and you're alerted if they slip a little bit. And so it's probably a good time in the hobby. It's a good time now to get into saltwater. Certainly if you've got the bucks. I mean, one thing about saltwater I've noticed, from pumps to dosing equipment to the fish and corals, nothing is really cheap. It's on that learning curve, you lose a couple fish and they're $100 each. I mean, that that can really start to sting. So, all right. Any more questions? Go ahead and hit me now before we end off. Are we getting on the hour? Man, time flies when you're having fun. Hit me with any questions. You folks have been very active in the chat today, and I appreciate that. I'll scroll back here. Yeah, you know, I've heard that before, ex-colleague Kev. Someone throws some feeders in the tank, the fish don't eat them, and they become big pets. And so oh, man. Whips World. Corey just did a video on that a while back. Were you talking about under gravel filters? Not sure what conversation you were having there. Ex-colleague Kev, I have a canopy for my 125. Wife uses it as another place to decorate. Yeah, it depends I used to have the kind that was split in the middle. The top was split so you could open up the front. The front could be opened up the whole front went up and back and would sit on the back. So if there was a framed picture or a flower vase or something, it wouldn't last. So we didn't put anything up there. But I guess depending, there's some canopies where you open up a flap in the front and you can reach in, and yeah, I could see that. You know, even like a sliding opening, you know, in the front. You could put some decorations on top, a flower pot, some plants that'll drape over. Yeah, I get it. All right, let's see here. Video for Geeks. Love that name. I'm on week 5 of my fishless cycle and waiting it out. Painful. You're still showing ammonia? Man, see, for me, I don't have that. I don't have that maybe that patience. I don't know for a fish. I mean, I've done it, but I'll go out and get a hold of some of that Fritzyme, 700 or 7. I'll dump some of that in there and throw some fish in there so they can make some ammonia to feed the bacteria. And I mean, first you treat the tank with regular water conditioner. Make sure the temperature's right. Throw in your Fritzyme. Throw in your fish. You know, not a lot of fish, maybe 4, 5, 6, depending how big they are. And or I take a bunch of media from an established tank, toss it in the filter, and again, be sure the water's conditioned so it doesn't kill the bacteria, and I get an instant cycle. The fishless cycle for me is yeah, I go crazy. Hey, Ray Barksdale in the house. Got a white lips for a few weeks ago, about 3 inches long. Doing great. Now, I'll tell you something about white lips and something to consider, Ray, in the future. White lips will school. And if you've ever seen 5 or 6 white lips swimming together with those dark blue bodies, it is beautiful. Especially if you turn the lights down and those lips are kind of like really bright white and you see them schooling around, it is stunning. So if you have if you have the size, consider throwing in another 4 or 5 of those white lips. It's just one of those amazing things. You know, it's like your dolphins. You know, they'll school. There are certain cichlids that will school, and it's very cool to watch. Crystal C, that's it. Water conditioner, add bacteria, get a couple fish, test every day for spikes. Yeah, and you're gold. GP, the Kardashian cichlid. Yeah, white lips is a high fashion. It's a high fashion cichlid. All right. Video for geeks. Do you make content for people learning about video? I'd be curious. I love studying video content. Video about how to make videos. All right, folks. So I want to thank those of you who have made it this far, and thank you for the thumbs up, for the subscribes. Thank you for attending me. Thank you to my wonderful moderators. Thank you for those super chats. That is amazing. And if I didn't get to your questions today, it doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means I didn't get to your question. And certainly, if you have a very pressing question, if you're a member of the Garage Gang, you have a special email you can use. Otherwise, use ben.o.cichlid@gmail.com if you have a pressing question. And I may not get back to you instantly, but I will get back to you, and I'll be happy to respond. So that being said, video for geeks. I am a video audio engineer. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. In today's world, that can be very exciting. You're welcome, Metsakali Fish Keeper. Thank you for sitting in. Thank you, wonderful moderators, Jerry, GP, and the rest of you. And Denny, if you're still around, and Salient, and all right. So with that, I think we will go ahead and wrap this up. You folks have a wonderful weekend. And let's see here. Let's go to the main. There you go. Have a wonderful weekend, and get out there in the sunshine. Work on those tanks, and I'll see you folks next week. Look for some new videos. Not sure what I'm going to talk about. Probably the results on the black algae experiment that you already know about, but don't tell anybody. And I think that's it. Thank you, my friends. I'll see you again next week.